I'm Phil with Alpha Bowhunting, and this is our new show, To the Point.
Okay, we're back. Segment 2, episode 2, whatever you want to call it. Again, take number 1, and it's only going to be take number 1. But we were talking about hunting instinct and some of the experiences, some of the the top 10%ers, top 1%ers, those kind of things. But Bo, you started talking specifically more about this season is hot. It was early, but there's still some guys that are figuring out. Now continue with that thought, and then I'm going to throw another question out there to you guys. But go ahead and continue with what you thought, what you saw this year when you came back to work, the days between hunts, what you were hearing and what you were seeing.
Yeah, so this year, yes, season was early. It was hot. A couple of my experiences starting the season, areas that I was normally finding animals, incredibly dry. And you know what? I've been back there on what I would consider dry years. I almost feel like it didn't compare.
Yeah.
And that, with that fact, there was a lack of animals. Now, obviously, the terrain hadn't changed. The animals themselves, should have, in my opinion, been in that area, and they weren't. Now, myself personally tried to evolve in that situation and move to where I thought animals would be. I know a lot of people out there that on some years will struggle because they get into an area that they've consistently always found animals, and they try to stick with that and ride or die by that spot. This year I had to bounce. I had to get out of there.
And Braden, Braden and I experienced that early. We went up high. We had mule deer hunting in a specific area a couple years ago. We went to a different area, and it was dry. I mean, I even remember when we were getting to the top of the last basin that we were going to set up camp, and we found a little bit of water, and we weren't sure if there was water up above more. So I loaded up all my bladder and my bottles and everything, and I didn't hike it but another half a mile, but I didn't know because we were going into a new area. It was super dry. A lot of fires in Colorado this year.
Oh, terrible.
Right? And in Braden, when we're up there the day before the season, we're looking for deer. You were pointing out, it's like, look how dry everything is up here, right? Look how dry the grass is. Look how dry. I mean, there's no water. So yes, being able to evolve from those type of situations,
maybe adapt's a better word.
Adapt, sure, is critical to being successful. And here's the other thing. I myself, I'm not gonna. I don't want to use this as an excuse. My lifestyle with the multiple businesses that I'm in charge of running and the tournament side, I don't have the time to scout like I'd like to. I leaned on, and Braden got out a couple more times. I kept him busy this summer too, so he didn't get out as much as he wanted to. But I didn't do the scouting that I would like to have done, and I think it hurt us in the end to some extent because we weren't finding the animals like we did a couple years ago.
I think that's like everybody. I don't think we ever spend enough time scouting.
But you can say that.
As we want.
And I was in there 3 additional times scouting, and I didn't see the animals that we've seen before.
So
in 3 different parts of the area. So
it's tough.
I don't know. That's tough.
But at the same time, from a confidence standpoint, we all talk about in the coaching, the pyramid structure and everything, where confidence is king in everything that you do archery-wise.
Yep.
And if you lose your confidence somewhere along the way, whether it's because of the area, because of your equipment, because of anything, it hurts you and it handicaps you. Mm-hmm. So, Braden, you hunted, obviously you and I went out early.
Yep.
I missed on a deer that I think that we were probably a minute away from killing a deer, potentially multiple deer, if we could have got into embedded, right?
Before that storm moved in. Yep.
Yeah, so a storm moved in, and it's just the way it goes. I caught a deer as he was going off the bench that they were laying in. I took a shot and missed, and then weather rolled in, and it was just a rough rest of the time that we had. And then you moved on and you started chasing elk.
Yep.
What were you? I mean, what was your I guess take on what you saw this season throughout as it progressed?
A lot, obviously, the talk is what the weather's, every year talk about what the weather's doing, whether it's dry, wet, whatever, what the heat's doing, what the elk are doing, and I've learned to almost block that out because, again, my toolbox, the way I view my toolbox is those 1%ers, they don't matter. They don't matter. You know what I mean? You go find the animal and you get it done, So I try not to think about that, I actually had a really good elk season from the perspective of finding bulls, finding good bulls, big bulls, and working into different positions. Got into elk almost every time I was out, and then made a critical mistake, made an epically critical mistake on the moment of truth, and hit a bull high, and a big bull high, and he's still out there bugling. I think he's still alive. I know that.
Yeah, and hold that, because I want, again, as we close out this initial segment, I want to talk a little bit more about some of our hardships or trials or mistakes that we made this year. But on my side, like I said, Braden and I started hunting early together. We went up high. We were up 13,000+ feet in a couple areas, and it was dry. Yes, that again, the season is what it is, right? You got to deal with it as it comes, whether it's early or late, or it's hot or it's cold.
Yep.
You got to still try to find animals and get into animals and try to take advantage of a good shot opportunity, of which is what we really focus on the 3.0 series of our alpha pyramid. I myself hunt both private and public land, right? And I'm not going to ever be one that shies away from that, because I think that animals are animals. They don't know if they're on private or they're on public in most cases. In some cases, it might be a little bit different, right?
Depending upon hunting pressure. They know where the pressure is or not.
They just know where the pressure is.
And that's it. But if they're getting hunted from people on private property and they're getting hunted from people on public, the pressure may be different. So yeah, maybe they end up on private a little bit more, but still they're animals. They're not. You can't talk to them. You can't.
Just because they're
They
on
don't know
private
what
doesn't mean you
fences
can
are.
walk up to
They
them
don't
and
read a
pet 'em.
sign. That's
They
it,
don't read a
right?
sign. They don't know what fences are. They're still doing animal things, and surviving is an animal thing. So.
And what I've started to do is I've started to utilize some small pieces of private, whether it's relationships or property that I've acquired and my family's acquired, or that people that I know, to access public land that is harder for other people to access, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So and do I hunt the private? Sometimes I do. Sometimes I focus on getting further back to where I know more people will not be, because that's another thing that Braden and I experienced this year was, we're up hiking into some of these basins, and it's not an easy hunt or a hike, and there's a pack train of hikers coming in and out of these basins.
Yeah.
We had a spot like that this year.
So to think that Colorado is a very popular sport for recreation, hunting is one of those. So you're going to have to deal with other people. You're going to have to deal with those variables. Like you guys said, we talk about it, and we say how unfortunately this happened or that happened, but at the end of the day, those are the curveballs that we're throwing in the field. So you got to be able to deal
Part
with
of the game, right?
Right. And going back to where I hunted this year, I was able to take a cow on private land with my son, of which one of those pieces that we access some public land, and a list B cow tag. And I tell you what, that experience with him, it was exciting.
That's cool.
Because all he wanted to see was Dad shoot something.
Yeah.
And then once Dad shot something, all he wanted to do was get his knife into it, right? and I let him, and I didn't. The things that I've taken for granted over the last few years, so many times you get an animal on the ground and you're in a hurry to break it down, get it cool,
Yep.
get it hung, get it packed out, whatever the case is.
Do right, and you take care of that meat.
Yeah, and I was fortunate this time that it was in the afternoon. It was a little cooler. The cow ended up dying, and I was able to take my time because he was asking a ton of questions.
And enjoy the moment.
And I was, because I sat there a couple times. And I just snapped a couple pictures of him, and even took some video of him, because he would be cutting something, and it was something that I knew. It's like, oh yeah, you just cut here, you just move around, and you just continue. You take this front shoulder, or whatever the case was. And I was explaining it to him as I went, and it took on a different meaning and a different focus this year because of him. And so I was grateful for that experience. Bo, you're going to experience that hopefully soon. Braden's not there yet. But let's go ahead and to close out this.
I'll kill him, and you guys can experience that part of it.
Let's close out this topic of hunting. Let's sum it up, right? Again, what we've been doing here with No Limits Archery and Alpha Bowhunting, with the workshops and the coaching and everything, is really designed and focused to help, whether it's beginning bow hunters, intermediate, experienced, we're trying to give you a little different perspective, showcase some things that need to be considered, eliminate variables, and help you, the moment you step into the field, hopefully have some of those questions that may come about already answered. We cannot help you answer everything, obviously, right? But some of those questions of, you know, should I be considering a kneeling shot on a bedded animal at XYZ distance? Well, we're going to help you measure yourself to show you how, so that way you have confidence going with that. But we will all agree that hunting instinct is something that you develop in every day that you're in the field.
You know, I think it started, you know, from day one that you go in the field to now to the present time, and continues to develop all the time. And I know mine has developed quite a bit, but I still have a long way to go. A lot of tools put in the toolbox and related.
And our seasons are still, all of us still have tags, right? All of us still are going to be out in the field in some way, shape, or form for at least potentially a month or two, and even getting into, we'll talk on another episode about what we have going on still to come. But let's go ahead and close out this segment. Bo, tell me, I'm going to give you the option here, okay? Either give me an experience that you learned from this year, that the situation went well or bad, okay, or tell me something, a piece of equipment that actually you tried this year, that you know that you're really impressed with, or something new, or give me something, give me a tip, give me something to kind of sum up something to help people out there from what you experienced this year.
For me personally, let's say on the gear side of stuff, I didn't change anything crazy on my setup.
You changed your whole sleep system.
Oh, I did change my sleep system.
Whole sleep
yeah,
system.
Dude, thank you.
We talked about that.
I didn't think about it. You know, I was thinking about my bow earlier.
I'm the gearhead, man. I know what you got.
So finish on the first thought, though.
So, okay, first thought, yes. On my bow, we'll say specifically on the bow, arrow setup, stuff like that. I didn't change anything drastic. Man, I've been using basically, granted the bow model may have changed, but sight-wise, quiver, rest, stuff like that's all stay the same because it's always worked. Now I know there's a lot of people out there that come into the shop here and new products are out. They want to see the latest and greatest stuff. Sometimes that can bite them in the butt. I stuck with what's always been consistent for me. It's what worked well.
But most of what, I mean, and to finish off that topic, when you have a certain stabilizer setup or rest setup,
sure,
most cases you're still shooting stuff that's very relevant, that's very popular, that's very current. It's not like you've got a sight on your bow
my
that was
sight's
7
not
or 8
like
years old.
7,
right?
8 years old.
Okay.
No, absolutely not. I'm
not
still
that there's a
sticking
bad thing,
no. But I'm sticking to something that, let's say technology-wise, that's been around and it's been proven.
Right.
Okay? You know, I'll just spit out my sight. For example, I shoot a black gold descent verdict. I've shot a black gold descent verdict for 5 years.
Sure.
Or at least a driver style from black gold.
Dependable.
I've tried driver styles from the past and they've always worked well. I've narrowed it down to the black gold because it is dependable. It's well built. It's incredibly bright. And you know, there's other driver style sights out there right now that I probably could have jumped to try it out, brand spanking new stuff. But you know what? It's worked and it's been consistent for me. I am comfortable with its function and I know exactly how to operate it at the moment of truth. You know, and Phil, you've said it before. That moment of truth comes, your heart rate's up. Your coordination decreases, right? And that side
your fine motor skills definitely are diminished.
I can run that sight instantly, and
I figured out I go colorblind apparently.
So that's good to know and important to consider. Is some people that want to change their gear every year, maybe not the best thing, right?
Yeah.
Be confident. Trust your gear. Braden, same type of question, right? Give us something from what you experienced this year.
Rolling from that, and this probably meshes well. I changed a lot of stuff this year. I went to from spot hog to black gold. Changed bows. But I was very confident in my equipment going into the season. I was very comfortable with my equipment going into the season. I went back to my original story, quick story. By myself, called bull in to 18 yards. Thought I smoked him. Hit him high, he's still alive in the void. And it's very disappointing and that kind of thing, but we always have to learn from things, right? So I look back at the situation and I'm like, okay, what went wrong, or what could I have fixed, or what could have changed, or what can I change next time so it doesn't happen? And I got to thinking, well, when I changed sights, I changed my color, arrangement on my pins. Well, typically I'm red on top, green. Well, I had
So on and so
green
forth.
on top, red second. Not that I'm blaming this whatsoever, but I think in the moment of truth, it's a perfect example of what happens to your brain if you let it go into that autopilot. I put that red pin on him at 18 yards, sent that arrow a little high. Well, still should have killed him, but he, combination of him stepping down in a hole at the same time, put it way high in his back. So that just goes to show that, and to add to that, if you've ever seen me shooting here, how often do I shoot at 20 yards?
Not very
Not,
often.
honestly,
And I preach
honestly,
it.
That's all.
That's all of us. But I preach it to other people, and I will definitely start taking my own advice, because I spent so much time shooting it 50, 60, 70, stretching. I didn't spend enough time with that new pin configuration that my brain just naturally went
Took you
back
back.
to the old one. And I think that contributed to that mistake.
Well, and we all made plenty of mistakes this year. Trust me, and it's one of those things that in all our seminars and workshops, I've never tried to come off like I know more than you or I know everything. It's let's learn from each other's experiences, and we've tried to structure it so it's easy for you to learn. As far as myself, to give you something that I took from it, again, when I step into the woods, and even the first hunt of the year, I'll have to sit down and force myself to slow down, right? Because it's always go. Like go here, go there, do this, do that. Never have enough time in the day. And I'll tell you that the pronghorn that I was able to shoot, saw him the first day I hunted.
Yeah.
Saw him a week or so later. I took my son out after school one day and got him out there. We got close again. Well, we saw him in the distance.
I
You
stalked
saw
that
him.
buck. Yeah, I stalked that buck 2 days before you put an arrow in him.
And when I got to, but the thing is, what we learned is when you start talking about animal behavior and you start focusing on patterning an animal and knowing that we had tried decoys, and this is something that we hated because we were hunting a similar area for pronghorn.
Yeah.
And you had told me, put the decoy up,
He
didn't
wasn't
work,
having it.
right?
He was not having it.
So at that point, and I went in a couple days after Bo had gotten close to that buck, and I told myself I had a decoy. I had 2 decoys actually, and I was working in, and I had just gotten a couple other bucks to come in to about 80 yards. Didn't happen, but they were looking at. They came into the decoy.
Yeah. They
Well,
were
then
intrigued by it.
They were intrigued, but they weren't like full on chasing it yet. And when I got into this area where we'd been seeing it, we'd patterned this buck.
Yeah.
We knew he was hanging out in that area. He did have does, but he was not responsive to a decoy. And I just relied on being at the right place at the right time.
Yep.
In addition to that, not losing my crap in the moment of truth, because my battery and my rangefinder popped out, right? And I found it about 10 feet behind me. But that leads into the other thing is, I think I shot my bow leading up to the season more this year than I have in the last 4 or 5 years. Even throughout the season, I was shooting my bow every day. Even the days we were going out pronghorn hunt, I would throw 15, 20 arrows downrange before I throw my stuff in the Jeep and take off, or the truck, right? So because of that, I was and then I didn't shoot very many at close distance either. It was 60, 80, and 100 for me, 60, 80, and 100. But most of my arrows were shot at 60 to 80 yards, focusing on my 2/3 range, is what was 60 yards. And this is something that we talk about in our coaching structure. But 60 yards, my rangefinder's not working. A buck's sitting there, kind of somewhat walking slowly, grazing up into my direction, and I was able to quickly think that once he hit to a bow, it looked like 60 yards. I drew my bow and I let him eat an arrow. And it worked out for the better. Now, it's not always going to work out judging an animal, especially that size, at that distance.
But
So I
you've
got lucky.
seen that distance so many times.
When he stopped and he looked, and I looked at him quickly, I said, I know that animal's within a couple yards either way of 60. And I know with my group size that he's gonna eat this arrow.
Yep.
And he did. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and close this segment out, and we're going to continue with our current version of what we're doing here, information-wise, getting you guys up to speed with all things alpha bow hunting, no limits archery, and we're going to try to keep it to the point, even though we see some squirrels every once in a while. But thanks for checking in.
We're gonna
see
have
you
to
guys.
do about 10 of these for gear because I'm the gearhead and I have a lot of new gear.
We will definitely talk more about some other topics too. So we'll see you guys here on the next segment.